Hi, this is Randy Hollenbeck, and this is the Music Roundtable. Today on our show, we have Joe Haze, guitarist, producer, and remixer. Joe, how did you get into producing?
I was always the person that sort of had a grasp on what was going on. I'm kind of a nerd, so my first paid production gig I was 18, and it was just a weird thing where a younger band, I think they were 16, they uh, they knew that I knew what I was kind of doing, and I think the first thing that happened was I went to one of their gigs or something, and the bass player, his bass messed up, so I pulled out a soldering iron and MacGyvered it together, and that impressed them. They were like, "Wow, this guy could get things done." So I think that's really kind of the way it started. But I never. Things are weird nowadays because the term producer has become sort of this catch-all. Um, Before there were defined roles, so the producer was the person that maybe was brought in to sort of oversee the whole project and book the studio and some of these other things, and the engineer was the person that would be the technical guy. Now it's there can be the producer and the engineer, and all these roles are kind of mushed together now. So
So you're also a guitarist. What made you interested in that? Interested in playing guitar, and how old were you when that happened?
I think like a lot of other guitar players, there's a correlation between puberty and playing the guitar. For me, it wasn't necessarily girls. It was more like what I saw like on MTV at the time. Back when MTV played videos, I know this whole thing, right? Um, it was this world that was nothing like what I grew up in, and I think most people would think that about LA or that the rock music scene. And so for me, um, it seemed really cool and interesting. And then when I started playing guitar, I was around 13, but I sucked really bad. And I think that there's a barrier to entry for a lot of young players because the first 6 months, most people, it's just going to be terrible. Um, you're trying to get the muscle memory in your hands and the calluses and everything. I don't know how I stuck with it, to be honest with you. I did, though. I was obsessed. So, um, and then that actually is what led me into being a recording engineer because I couldn't find any good studios in town. So it's sort of like they say like necessity is the mother of invention. So it's kind of like that's what you see now is a result of frustration and you know my preferences.
Who was your influences on guitar?
My main influence was George Lynch. Yeah, um,
And you're working with them now.
yeah, yeah. That's not intentional. I didn't camp out in front of his house or something. It was really weird because I started playing guitar and I was into, Dokken and Whitesnake and stuff like that. And I took a lot of flack for it because I was a little cheesy, I admit. Um, but as I got older, I matured and I was just never into Led Zeppelin or, that kind of stuff. I was always into, I would listen to like Rat or the Scorpions before Led Zeppelin. So I got into more of the Lynch Mob stuff too, and then Lynch's solo album, which was super awesome. And but then I eventually around 16, I started getting into like Nine Inch Nails and Skinny Puppy and this crazy like the polar opposite of that. No flashy stuff, and instead of having hot chicks in videos, they had bugs and stuff like just stuff that was a little bit more gritty. And and then it's weird, honestly, because it took like a while, many years, many decades, but I eventually married the two. So it's sort of like I have what would Lynch do in this context of this kind of music?
What, he reach out to you and get in touch with you and say, "Hey, I want to do something," or
No, it was very happenstance would be a good word to use. We had a mutual friend, Mandy Lyon, and it goes back to Lynch's first solo album. The song "The Beast" 1 and 2. Okay, so Mandy was a guest singer on the album. He did the song "The Beast." It's the same album that like the Nelson Twins did, and you know Ray Gillen and stuff like that. And so I knew Mandy because I was in LA at the time, and I don't know, we met through a mutual friend, and Mandy would just sort of like call me and say, "Hey, you want to go to the Bow and have dinner or go hang out or whatever?" And so, okay. And he and I had talked about maybe doing something, but I think we were at NAMM, and I saw Mandy and we hung out, and I was doing something. All of a sudden, I'm walking through a parking lot and I see him talking to George, and I kind of met George a little bit. We knew, kind of, but not really like formally, like through a friend. So Mandy introduced me, and immediately the conversation became, "Hey, let's all three just do something," you know. Um, and Mandy, he qualified me, which is a thing. It's hard. It's hard to break into certain things because I had already worked with like Sublime, and I was holding my own as an engineer and co-producer, producer. But it's still, not everyone knows who I am because I'm in the background a lot. And so I don't do a lot of press. I don't constantly, I come from a world where you're buried in the studio, and the people that need to know who you are. But so, yeah. So that's what started it. And then, yeah, it's like the first session. I wrote some ideas, and I flew out to LA because by this time I wasn't living in LA. So I think between meeting George and working with him, I don't know, it was like a 2 year, maybe a year, something like that. And in that year, I had transitioned because I had just left Sylvia Massey's studio. I used to co-produce and work with her for a few years. She's one of the top female producer, Tool and Prince, and people know who she is and everything. But I had moved to Utah, so I had a studio in Utah for a while. And so I'm flying from Utah back to LA and working, doing sessions with Lynch.
how do you like make up some like beats or something for him to play over? Is that what you do, or do you play guitar, or
Yeah, well, the way it started was I wrote bass lines. So I would like program a bass and, develop a sound, program the sound, add to it, do layers, kind of basically building a soundtrack without a guitar, essentially. Later on, I did play some guitar as well, but they were just really solid foundations to say, okay, this is listenable. There's a vibe here. So then what we did is Lynch and I would take the idea, and then we would maybe rearrange it, chop it up, maybe change the key. So I didn't commit, like a lot of things were still in MIDI. Some of the things were printed sounds, and I could go in with the audio and pitch it if I needed to. And it was really, I created sort of a framework, but but it was still mud. It was clay. It was still clay. You can mold it and shape it.
it's called the Banishment is the band?
That's correct. And Tommy from Prong actually named the band. We were at Energy Studios, which is one of my favorite studios to work in. And this was, I think, sometime in 2016. We were there doing some stuff, and I think Prong has a song called Banishment or something. So that's kind of where it came from. It's really hard to come up with a band name.
Volumes of constant rain, defective thoughts override the brain. Festering minds can't be let through. It's all
When do you expect this to be released, this album?
It's hard to say. It's gonna be soon. We're there are some variables. I'm getting ready to finish the mix on the album real soon, and we're negotiating with a couple labels right now, and just trying to maintain our flexibility and our freedom. The campaign that we launched, I mean, I couldn't pick a worse time to imagine having a campaign. Christmas during a pandemic. It's like, and it wasn't something that Lynch and I really ever, that was never part of the plan, but neither was COVID. So,
How many tracks are on the album?
that surprised me the other day because it's been so long. And initially, Lynch and I had actually left off several tracks that we just didn't think fit. And when we got Devix in the band as our official singer, he liked some of that stuff. So we added some stuff back in. I don't know how many we're going to release. I think right now we have over 12 right now. We may release 8 to 10 and then have a few left over for other things. And we still have the tracks that Tommy sang on, we're still going to be releasing as well. So there's some confusion about that. Tommy was in the band. He did sing on some tracks, and we're going to use it. It's valid. There's no bad blood. This project just took way longer than we anticipated. Even Jason Miller from Godhead actually sings on a track that may surface one who knows one day. But
Is this just like a project, or you plan on touring behind it?
we never really planned on touring. When we were doing the thing with Mandy, we were definitely thinking about that. If people want us to, then absolutely. Assuming we can tour ever again, which we'll see. But I mean, it's not a no. It's just we don't know. It just depends if people want us to. If the interest is there, then great.
What other projects are you involved with right now? Can you talk about any?
Kind of. Oh man, that's another thing it's so stupid because I'm really cautious. Even with the Banishment, which is like, let's face it. I mean, I'm not saying it's my band, it's our band, but you know what I mean. It's not a client. I mean, this is music I wrote. A large majority of it, and in collaboration with Lynch and now Devix. Right now, I'm working on the new Primitive Race album. The last album I co-produced, mixed, and engineered part of it that had Chuck Mosley, who died unfortunately, from Faith No More. And we have a new singer and kind of a new band, actually. But Primitive Race has always been kind of one of those weird, like, all-star projects where you just get a bunch of people that have established bands and they throw down, and that's what it becomes. So I'm working on that. Going into the studio in a couple weeks, working on another project that has some interesting people involved. I got Brian Tichy on drums, and I met him through Lynch. Actually, we worked together on some stuff, and there's some people involved that are pretty. People know who they are. They're pretty. I hate the word famous, whatever that means, but and that's the problem. It's like some of the stuff I don't want to talk about because I don't want to be that guy, but things will be revealed, So. Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I have some remixes that I'm working on, and there's always something going on. It's funny because I'm so unaware of my own life. I'm so slammed all the time with work and just focusing on that. And the crazy thing is, like one of my clients, he had some stuff on like iHeartRadio or whatever. It's like, whatever that means, like throughout the network. And, people are like, yeah, cool. And I'm like, what? Okay, cool. Yeah. Just got a placement. A remix I did was just in some Canadian TV show. It got picked up as like a placement thing. Okay. Relevant Discord is a band that is kind of relatively unknown, but super cool, awesome. There's a lot of artists out there that they're awesome, but it's hard to say sometimes what gets traction.
Since the pandemic, it seems like you didn't have any problem still getting work. You said you're busy constantly right now.
Busy is one thing, but people don't expect to pay a lot these days, and so I'm always kind of, and again, I cautiously talk about this stuff, but I was groomed to make albums. I was groomed to work in dire situations with, I mean, the stuff that we did at Sylvia's and even before I started working with her, it was like, it was brutal. It's Rick Rubin could come in tomorrow and it would be fine. There's no, so it's really difficult to work on that level these days. Budgets are really low, and the value system is a little messed up. So that's why, it would be great to have younger people or people that are just entering the industry have, let's have the better culture, and, it makes you wonder, somebody's budget for their album is like $2,000, let's say on the low, that's really low. Right. But then magically they spend 20 grand on a video. And you're like, wait a minute. It's like, well, yeah, okay. But it's because the music culture is so much different. The video people demand it. So I encourage studio owners and producers and everyone, it's like, stop undercutting each other, Let's work together because we can all make more money. And it's one of those things where I don't want to fight against people, but the magical shortcut thing doesn't work. It's not a real thing, okay? The first time I was in the studio with Lynch, he hit 2 notes and I was like, whoa, okay, I got nothing. That's him. It's coming from his hands. It's my job to capture it, but it's not to discourage people, but it's like, hey, you don't get to like use your laptop for 5 minutes and go get famous and have the whole world, hard work is part of it. Sorry. So.
Yeah. You don't just, fix it on your laptop and then go out and play it, because you have to work at it. It's a skill,
It is. And that's why I'm really impressed that so many people have picked up the guitar during the pandemic, which is kind of cool. Because for a while there, people didn't want to play guitar because it was too hard. And I get it. I'm that guy. Nothing has been easy. Okay. And it's really funny because, people will be like, wow, you're playing alongside George Lynch. I mean, that's pretty ballsy, but it's like, no, I'm doing my thing, and I'm confident in what I do. I mean, he's a way better guitar player, but I don't suck. I don't know. And with the internet now, it's really bizarre because you have some 8-year-old that can blow us all away technically. You know what I mean? Like some crazy, kid on YouTube or whatever. You see it all the time. But it doesn't mean they're going to write a song that I'm going to write or that Lynch is going to write.
Like you were saying about paying like 20 grand for a video and they only pay 2,000 in the studio. Why not pay 20 in the studio and then make more songs and make each song better and take the time to do that?
I mean, there's a deep dive. I can, again, number one, most people don't want to put the work in that it takes. I mean, I've literally had clients tell me, wow, we love working with you. That's like the best drum sound we got. Awesome. Okay, cool. I just improved your art, right? But then they're like, it's too much work. We don't really want to work with you. Okay. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it's life, it's like, it's like, this has never happened to me, but it's like your wife leaves you for somebody who, is less than, but it's because some people don't have the confidence and don't believe in themselves enough to actually be pushed up against some of that stuff. Because when you take somebody in a studio, I mean, it's crazy. It's like when when Mosley came in and saw my studio, he was like, I haven't been in a studio this nice since working with Matt Wallace. And he was actually working with Matt at the time and bouncing between Matt and I. And that's another thing I'll be working on soon. I'm actually supposed to mix the rest of those songs. So there's a reveal. I don't know if, but it's crazy because a lot of guys don't want to be faced with the real side of, this is a real thing, and you're going to have to step it up as an artist and work your butt off. And a lot of people want to play. They want to play pretend, and that's cool. That's okay. But, I take everything really literally, so I'm just like, "Rah, jump out of the plane."
I love being in the studio because you create stuff in there. You might come up with something and try something new, switch a sound or something, and it would completely change the song.
Well, and that's what I love about being a producer, which I never considered myself a producer until way later. It's funny because a lot of times I will sit there and I won't say anything. I notice a lot of younger producers, they will try to earn their keep by saying something all the time, which can be very distracting. Hey, whoa, da, 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 da. When I do say something, case in point, there's this one thing we were doing a drum tracking session. I didn't say much. I was observing, considering many factors. All of a sudden I said, do this fill right here. Change the whole part of the verse. So it's not about how much you do, it's about what you do. And it's just like, we were talking a second ago. The reason why people don't value the process of making albums is because they've been told otherwise, and they've come to believe that it's an easy thing. Okay? It's not. If you're, okay, for instance, and again, this is kind of going to rub people the wrong way, but, I'm going to Energy in 2 weeks to record drums with Brian, who's an awesome drummer, Whitesnake, Billy Joel, he's qualified. Lynch Mob. And we're recording in the same room where Steve and Slate did the drum samples that everyone uses that they love. Okay? Nice. So, yeah, now, does it mean, it means I have to work my ass off to get a great drum sound. The staff at Energy is awesome. Okay? Brian's an awesome drummer. But the bottom line is, don't you want orange juice? Why do you want orange Kool-Aid? You know what I mean? Or why are you settling for orange Kool-Aid? I know not everyone has the budget, not everyone has this or that, but think about that. It's like, hey, what somebody spends for a vacation, you could spend on your album. And what boggles my mind is that people have these delusions of grandeur. Like, okay, you want to be famous, or you want the house, or you want the fan base, or whatever. Well, who starts a business on $1,000 in a wing and a prayer? It's like, do you realize how much it costs to get like a McDonald's or a Subway or any kind of franchise? I mean, if you're not coming to the table with hundreds of thousands of dollars, you're not even playing ball. So it's like, this is a great time to make albums. It's inexpensive compared to what it was before. So I'm surprised that people, it's like, come on, man, you have to do something for yourself. And that's the biggest piece of advice for real I can give people. Because I'm not trying to sell anyone anything. It's like, work your ass off and maybe, don't take a vacation for a couple of years. Wow. You know what I mean? It's like when I was working with Sylvia, I was doing like 80-hour weeks easy, It's just like, how bad do you want it?
Yeah, you have to put the work in and the time to get something good,
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen a band break up in the studio?
No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a good fun.
They each want a different sound.
Working and, yeah. I mean, but to be fair, not everyone needs that. And I still do encourage, hey, man, making music is a beautiful thing. Just decide what level you want to take it to. It doesn't mean anyone's better than anyone else. It just means, just understand what you're trying to personally achieve. If you want to be a pro ball player, you're probably not going to hang out with your buddies and drink beer. You're going to be training. You're going to, or if you don't really care and that's something that is fine, get a normal job and play ball on the weekends. Good for you. That's awesome. But the problem nowadays is it just seems like everything is equaled out, but it's not. I mean, just because people have a like on social media, I always say, like with your dollars, man. Instead of giving me a like on social media, send me $1.
What are you currently listening to as far as music, new music?
I recently had some people, like this friend of mine recently sent me some stuff that he's been working on, his band, which is really cool. And I'm actually going to help him develop some of that. I tend to be into stuff like KMFDM and that kind of stuff.
What's the name of his band?
Gray Skies. So free plug. You're welcome. I'm going to be doing some production on that. And the reason why I like it is because it reminds me of myself, like his programmer, Jesse. It reminds me of me when I didn't know anything, and I always like that because I'm so passionate about what I do and I'm so nerdy with it. And I love to see other people that are interested because fame and stuff is great, but it comes and goes. It's just, the career's like this. It's up and down, and you have to get something more out of it than money or fame, and I'm glad. I mean, it's insane. Honestly, when I worked with Sean Bevan, he's the guy that produced and you know, engineered Nine Inch Nails, you know, and Marilyn Manson and all these other things. Worked with Guns N' Roses, and it's crazy. Like the remix that he and I did, we did a remix for Chris, you know, for Brenna from the drummer from Nails, and I used some of the stuff that I made when I was like 16, like some drum loops and stuff that I made on my 4-track. So it's like, talk about full circle. And I'm gonna, you know, a project with Lynch. It's like, what the heck, man? That's worth, you know, skipping some vacations. It's worth, spending money on gear as opposed to, you know, the conveniences of life. You know, but I still have what I need. It's just, don't be excessive. Well, of course, I mean, don't look at my gear. That's
You were on tour with Lords of Acid, right? Do you got any crazy tour stories?
Let's see. One of my favorite things I did on tour that no one gets, we were on our way to Canada to play in Toronto. And I don't know if anyone understands this. A lot of people do. It's hard to get into Canada. They're brutal. And so our singer, Mia, and our tour manager, Roland, couldn't get in. Like, literally, they wouldn't let him in. So, but we had to do the show. I mean, we couldn't just let everyone down. So on the way, we had about 3 hours from the border. And we were, Galen, D, our bass player, and myself were learning Progicon tracks. So it's like his solo stuff outside of Lords. So we learned 3 new songs, and I had to figure out, you know, what key they were in and the changes, because those are 3 songs we were going to add, because we took out some songs that were songs that only Mia could sing, you know. So we got some fans to sing some of the other hits. Just, you know, yeah, it was crazy. And then it was a pretty cool show. The really cool venue, awesome light show. And halfway through the show, Praga always loved to throw me out into the crowd. It was that's not my thing, but okay. Well, so I have my ears in, right? So I have an in-ear monitoring system with my click, and I'm crowd surfing all of a sudden. I find myself on my back, and I notice, like, I'm going pretty far back. Like, there's a lot of people there. And all of a sudden I get to the back of the room and I get dropped. They drop me. Okay, like, wonderful. I run back on stage. My guitar tech has my other guitar ready, my backup guitar, gives it to me. I put the guitar on. I finished. It was the last song in the set, I think, or close to it. Finished this. I nailed the ending of the song. I had like 16 bars left. It was like I muscle memory or something. I crawl back up on stage, put my guitar on. I start playing. I nailed it. Boom. It's that kind of stupid stuff that doesn't seem important until you think about it. You're like, man, I just got dropped. I ran like 10 miles back to stage, and then you have to, you know, get up on stage, and people are like, oh. You know.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
You mentioned the remixes. You know, that's a really weird thing. Like, I never really tried to do remixes. I did one, and then people liked it, and then word kind of spread, and then people just started asking me. So that's the other thing. It's like, you were saying something about, you know, people that listen to your channel, you know, getting into the industry, and it depends. I mean, it's interesting. Some people want to be artists, other people want to be behind the scenes, and I think it's great. I think people have to be careful now, though, because, like, when I started doing the remixes, you know, if I thought about it, I would be freaking out, because you're taking someone else's art and you're doing what you want. And, you know, I have a really bad habit of being a people pleaser, because, you know, it's like, this industry is brutal. And so remixing is one of the only times when I find that I don't really take input. It's like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. But ironically, it works out really well. So I guess sometimes what I'm saying is, like, if you're an artist, do your thing and don't let people tell you what to do. And I mean, take advice, but don't be dictated by other people's opinions. And you have to have discernment, because you have to understand when people have your best interest in mind and when they don't. I'm sure we've all grown up, I mean, playing guitar. You know, my parents were always like, turn it down, blah, 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 get a real job. It's like, okay, great, you know? And honestly, it's like, not to get too personal, but like, I stopped talking about it. I mean, and it's really hard. You know, it's like Thanksgiving, and you're sitting there and like, well, what have you been up to? It's like, well, you know, last Primitive Race album. I mean, you know, we were on the Grammy ballot in 5 categories on the last Primitive Race album, including Best Engineer Non-Classical. Like, that to me is like awesome, because I engineered some of that stuff. And and Mark Thwaite, he did some of it, and Erie, and it was a team effort. But I mean, it's hard because it's like you can't say that stuff around people, because then people think you're full of it, and then they want, they get it kind of weird. And so there are these things I never thought would be a situation, like it's easy to fantasize about an end result, but what people don't realize sometimes is that there's so much that goes into it. I mean, even working with Lynch, he has a whole system of things. He's so good about it. I know his schedule better than he does, and I shouldn't say anything, but it's like he gets up in the morning, he does interviews in the morning, he's very compartmentalized, and he's and he's really good about running his time, because this industry can get away from you. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still kind of in that thing where I work on so many projects that, it's like, I'm finally pushing back and going, no, you can't call me at 2 a.m, bro. It's like, you can't do that, and I don't like taking shortcuts. I just, and that's the thing too. I mean, I sound like a jerk, but a lot of the stuff I hear is garbage. It's like, dude, it wasn't done, the right way. And I'm not saying I'm the only person that knows the right way, but I just, not just tape, but back in the day, there were no other options in terms of, okay, either the recording's going to be garbage or it's going to be awesome. And if it was awesome, most likely there were other people involved that were not letting you as the artist just go. Okay. And what I mean by that is it's easy to sit in your bedroom or in a local studio and make, the freaking wall. Okay. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, I mean, I have artists that still haven't finished their song. It's been like a year. It's like, dude, what's more important? Getting what you think is the perfect mix after a year of doing nothing, or getting a solid mix, letting me do my job and putting it out to the world? And, so I really encourage people to, you have to have discernment, but it's like, if you're going to make this a business, you have to run it as a business. And it sucks because art and business are very strange bedfellows.
I wanted to talk about the remixing. Like, basically, when they give you the song, you're going to use your own vision to make that song your own, basically. That's what you're doing as a remix, right?
Yeah, and everyone's different with that. What I tend to do is usually what I'll do is I'll pick out a few things that I like, things that really speak to me. Maybe that verse, maybe a bass line, maybe a part of a synth. And I will put that to the side. And most of the time, I write a lot of custom stuff to go with the remix. So I'll maybe like change the key or change the tempo, and then take maybe some stuff that they've done and again change the key of it, and then put it with something I made. One of the things with my remixes that tends to just be just unintentional is sometimes my remix is kind of like a song. I mean, what I mean by that is that things change, and almost like you have a verse and a chorus, as opposed to like a long thing. Now, I don't know how that works in the club, because I know for, in a club context, you want things to kind of go on and on and on, and, that's a vibe. But sometimes I'll do like extended mixes for that intentionally.
Where can we get in touch with you at? Like websites, Instagram? How could people contact?
My website, which is joehaze.com, that has a bunch of my work and some of the information about me. So it's just my name. And then on Instagram, it's hazeofficial.jp. I had to change it to make it so nobody can find me. But Haze Official was taken, and when we started doing Banishment stuff, I decided to just, try to have, the whole Instagram thing is it's one of those things where like you have to get the blue check or whatever that is, or the, all that good stuff. But also the Banishment has some stuff out there now. So just Google me. Jeez, I don't know. Just Google Haze or Haze Remix. Or
anything else you'd like to talk about before we go here?
I just want to like encourage people to, it's like enjoy what you do and understand what you're asking for in life sometimes. And, hopefully, big shout out to people that love music. And I love the fact that people are open to the Banishment. I know there's a lot of Lynch fans out there that maybe it's something different. And I can't believe some of the really cool, open-minded, awesome fans that people are willing to give it a chance, because I know it's different. But there are solos. It's I was really careful and respectful because I'm a huge Lynch fan, and it's part of my pedigree. I wasn't gonna step on it, but at the same time, I had the wherewithal to be able to say, can you play that differently, or can we try this? And he would do the same thing. So I think it's cool. It's worth checking out.